Hi, this is jAyMaC, and in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to make this space. And there we go. This is basically a recreation of the bass used in Skrillex's Turmoil. You know, the one that goes, "It's no mystery to us at all. We all know how you love your turmoil." It's kind of semi-not released, so you probably might not have heard it, but yeah, it's out there. Just Google it. Or I might put a link in the description. Yeah, I'll do that. Anyway, this patch is actually based strongly on modern talking. I will just open it to show you. Here we go. You want to open Massive, click File, New Sound to initialize it, and place two modern talking oscillators, and leave them both in spectrum mode. Make sure the amplitude on both of them is up the whole way, and pitch them both down 12 semitones. I've created macros to change the timbre of the sound, just because, you know, I like customizing my patches, making them easy to change down here. But basically the idea is put the wavetable position for the second one right there, and the wavetable position for the first oscillator down the whole, minimum. Also put intensity all the way up. I don't even know why I added that, maybe just for the lulz, but you know, that's basically all it is for the patch. Then add a sine shaper on both inserts to give it a little bit more crunch. The classic tube, I love to use that, and the dimension expander, it's also really great for adding stereo-ness. And make sure the master's at about halfway, otherwise it'll clip if it's any higher and it'll sound too quiet if it's any lower. So on its own, the patch actually sounds like this. I'll just turn off all these effects here. Yeah, it sounds pretty nasty. Let me see. It just sounds like pure modern talking. But if you grab these EQs here, turn these both on. I actually learned this trick from a guy called DavidRck on YouTube. He does tutorials as well, and he seems to be quite good with EQ modulation. And basically, the idea is just watch these EQs, you'll get it. And obviously that's very quiet and sounds a little bit lacking. So what I did was I added a compressor, two overdrives, and a saturator. You would probably be able to find equivalents in other DAWs. I know FL has Fruity Blood Overdrive, or Fast Distortion, and a Wave Shaper, which can emulate the saturator. I don't know about, you know, Logic or all those. I don't use those, but I do use FL and Ableton, so I know about those. So the idea behind this is you've got these EQs, which are attenuating and subtracting certain formant frequencies from the very formant-rich modern talking oscillators, and that's basically creating the vowel movement. It's the EQ. There's two EQs. One is for a low-sounding formant, and one is to attenuate higher formants. And basically, all these, the compressor all the way up to the saturator, all they do is make it louder and add some distortion to add crunch. So I will show you the mappings of the EQs now. First I'll start reading the frequencies off. Put a peak at, say, plus 15 decibels with 1.23 kilohertz, and raise the resonance to a fairly high level to get that sort of what do you call it? Just a peak, and basically put a notch in at 7.56 kilohertz, negative 5 decibels to take out a certain small range of frequencies there. The resonance at 2.82 if you're using EQ8 in Ableton. And your frequency 1 here starts at 90 hertz. Again, you want this boosted about 15 decibels, or basically as high as your EQ can go. And you want the resonance at a slightly lower level, so the peak is wider, so the bandwidth of the peak is wider. and that will go up to 610 hertz. So you automate that from 90 to 610 hertz, and nothing else changes, just the frequency. Now on band 2, you want that to start at 800 hertz, the gain at -15, as low as your EQ can go, and the resonance again at a low level. I've got that at 1.94, so that the bandwidth is a little bit wider. And when you move your automation knob or whatever you use, those two peaks and notches, they'll cross over and then invert, and that creates that sort of vowel movement. It's a huge growl, and actually, if I turn off one of the EQs, I'll show you the difference between the low formant and the high formant. This is the low formant alone, and this is the high formant, I think, or I may have the wrong. And if you add them both together, it's performing a similar function to in massive when you use a band reject and a double notch filter in series with each other, but it's not quite the same. I don't actually know how Skrillex did it, but this way works, so I just do it this way. And the second EQ, you're basically going to want a wide peak at 9.33 kilohertz at plus 4 decibels, with a fairly low resonance, so it's the bandwidth is quite large, about 0.85 is what I put. And you want a notch at 2.05 kilohertz, as low as your EQ can go. I've got mine on -15, and 1.46 for resonance, so a not too wide but not too thin notch. And when you automate that, that goes from 2.5 kilohertz to 225 hertz. Band 1 starts at 90 hertz again, plus 15 decibels, or as high as your EQ will go, and a resonance of 1, so the peak is fairly wide. And that will go from 90 hertz to 800 hertz. And that's it for the EQ part. The compressor, I had mine set at -24 decibels, the ratio at 4, and attack and release at 1 millisecond and 20 milliseconds respectively. I also set this to -4 because it was clipping just a little bit, and as we all know, clipping in the digital domain is very bad. Well, it sounds bad to me. And I also forgot, make sure you turn down your EQs basically as low as they'll, well, not as low as they will go, but turn them down to the point where they don't clip, because of how much we're boosting frequencies here, it is definitely going to clip no matter what EQ you use, unless it's a saturating EQ, and then it'll just do soft clipping. But seriously, turn the EQs down or you'll get massive clipping, and it will sound awful. Okay, onto the overdrives. Ableton has an overdrive plugin which you can set the certain range of frequencies that are overdriven. I don't know if you can do that in FL's Blood Overdrive. I think you only get a color knob there, but anyway, I use two of these overdrives, one distorting high frequencies and one distorting low frequencies. For some reason, it does make a difference to when I just distort all the frequencies. But anyway, for the first overdrive, you want 4 kilohertz with resonance at 3, bandwidth resonance, and drive at 32%, tone at 60%, dynamics at 40%, and the dry wet at 21%. For the second overdrive, you want the band at 450 hertz with a resonance of 1.8, 32% on the drive, 60 on the tone, exactly the same as the previous one, 40 and 21. Now the saturator is a big part of this. Without the saturator, it sounds very quiet and just lacking in general. So what you want to do is put a saturator on there, give it a nice analog wave shaping curve, turn on soft clipping, and boost it by 13.5 or so decibels. Go from 12 to 14, depending on, just set it to what sounds good to you. And you can leave that at output at 0. Since you've turned on soft clipping, it will just keep the output at 0 decibels if it clips. And this compressor here is just my side chain. You can do that. That's the complete growl. And basically then to get the growl, just move your automation knob, whatever you set it to, and you'll get this nasty sounding growl. And you're not just limited to using modern talking with this as well. I was trying to accurately recreate Skrillex's bass in Turmoil, and it sounded very much like modern talking to me back when Skrillex actually used to use modern talking. He might still use it now, but certainly not in Spectrum mode. Yeah, you can put any sound you want there, and it will still sound growly. I mean, if you just bear with me here, I'll just initialize this massive patch. Just turn it down a bit.